Before Tokyo had a name, before Edo existed, this was a quiet coastal plain where rivers met the sea. Small yayoi communities cultivated rice, fished the shallow waters, and lived in harmony with the changing seasons. Over the decades, the settlement slowly grew. Families reclaimed more land for rice, while rivers and tidal waters continued to shape everyday life. The fertile plain sustained larger communities. Storage buildings protected valuable harvests, and fishing became just as important as farming. Generation after generation, people shaped the landscape with patience rather than conquest, expanding only as nature allowed. Nearly 2 centuries had passed. The land was changing, slowly and quietly. Long before castles or skyscrapers, these early communities laid the first human foundations of the place that would one day become Tokyo. As the 3rd century began, farming communities continued to grow, new leaders emerged, and the first signs of political authority appeared across the Kanto Plain. Villages became connected through trade and shared traditions. Across the landscape, burial mounds honored powerful local rulers whose influence stretched beyond a single settlement. During the Kofun period, monumental tombs transformed the landscape. Though the future Tokyo remained rural, authority and ceremony were becoming part of everyday life. The fertile plain supported increasingly prosperous communities. Wooden bridges and storehouses reflected a society becoming more permanent and organized. By the end of the 4th century, the plain had become home to thriving farming communities. The foundations of organized society were firmly established, setting the stage for profound cultural changes in the centuries ahead. By the 5th century, powerful clans governed much of the Kanto Plain. Villages prospered through farming, while enormous burial mounds honored generations of local rulers. Trade slowly linked scattered settlements. Though still remote from the imperial heartland, the eastern plains became increasingly connected. Ancient traditions remained deeply rooted. Sacred forests and seasonal ceremonies continued to shape everyday life across the quiet countryside. New ideas traveled slowly from the west. The winds of change had begun to reach the eastern frontier, though life here still followed the rhythm of the land. As the 6th century came to an end, the eastern plains stood on the edge of transformation. New beliefs, new rulers, and new ideas would soon reshape Japan, while this quiet landscape waited for its distant future as Tokyo. During the 7th century, the authority of the Yamato court gradually reached the eastern frontier. Even here, far from the capital, local communities began to feel the influence of a more organized Japan. New roads carried officials, messages, and goods across the countryside, linking the eastern plains more closely with the growing Japanese state. Buddhism had spread across much of Japan. Though still remote, the eastern frontier slowly welcomed new beliefs alongside its ancient traditions. Rivers and roads carried both commerce and culture. The frontier remained peaceful, yet its connection to the wider nation grew stronger with every generation. By the end of the 8th century, the eastern plain was no longer isolated. Though still rural, it had become part of a growing nation whose influence would continue to shape this land for centuries to come. As the Heian period began, the eastern frontier remained far from the imperial court. Yet each harvest brought greater prosperity, and the quiet countryside continued to grow. Wealth concentrated into large estates. Local landowners protected their harvests, while armed retainers quietly became a familiar sight across the frontier. Trade flourished along the rivers. At the same time, skilled horsemen trained to defend powerful estates, foreshadowing the rise of Japan's warrior class. Prosperity demanded protection. Across the Kanto Plain, influential families relied increasingly on mounted warriors to secure both land and trade. By the close of the 1st millennium, the eastern frontier had become prosperous and well-connected. Beneath its peaceful fields, however, a new force was emerging, the warrior clans that would soon transform Japan forever. The 11th century marked the steady rise of the samurai. Across the Kanto Plain, armed retainers became guardians of land, wealth, and political influence. Prosperity brought competition. Local clans strengthened their defenses, and warriors became an essential part of everyday life. The warrior culture matured. Skill with horse and bow defined the samurai long before the sword became their enduring symbol. In 1185, the Genpei War ended with the victory of the Minamoto clan. Japan's political center began moving toward the east, forever changing the destiny of the Kanto region. By the end of the 12th century, the eastern plains were no longer a distant frontier. The age of the samurai had begun, setting the stage for the rise of Edo centuries later. Under the Kamakura shogunate, eastern Japan gained new importance. Near the mouth of the river, a tiny fishing community quietly appeared, an early settlement that would one day become Edo. Rivers connected the countryside to the sea. Though still little more than a village, Edo's location made it an increasingly useful stop for trade and travel. Earthquakes were a constant companion in Japan. Even small settlements learned to rebuild and carry on after nature reminded them of its power. The collapse of the Kamakura shogunate brought uncertainty. Armies crossed the eastern plains, yet ordinary life continued beside the rivers and fields. By the end of the 14th century, Edo was still only a modest riverside settlement. Few could have imagined that this quiet village would soon become the birthplace of one of history's greatest cities. At the dawn of the 15th century, Edo remained little more than a fishing village. Its greatest advantage was not its size, but its location beside rivers flowing into a sheltered bay. Trade slowly increased. Though still small, Edo was becoming a useful stop for merchants traveling between inland villages and the sea. Military planners had begun to recognize Edo's strategic importance. Quietly, preparations were underway for a project that would redefine the region. In 1457, Oda Dokan ordered the construction of Edo Castle. From this moment forward, the destiny of this quiet village changed forever. The foundations of modern Tokyo had been laid. With the castle standing above the plain, Edo was no longer just a fishing village. A military stronghold had emerged, attracting craftsmen, merchants, and settlers whose descendants would build one of the world's greatest cities. The castle quickly attracted new life. Merchants, craftsmen, and farmers settled beneath its walls, giving birth to the first true castle town of Edo. By the turn of the 16th century, Edo had become an important regional center. Trade flourished along its rivers, and the castle governed an increasingly active community. Conflict across Japan made strongholds more valuable than ever. Edo's defenses expanded, and the settlement continued growing, despite an age of war. Although still far smaller than Kyoto or Osaka, Edo was steadily gaining strategic importance. Every decade brought more people, more trade, and greater military value. In 1590, Tokugawa Ieyasu made Edo his new base of power. It was a decision that would forever change the destiny of Japan. Within a generation, this regional castle town would begin its transformation into the nation's political center. Tokugawa Ieyasu wasted no time. Massive construction projects reshaped the land as Edo prepared to become the center of a new government. Canals became the arteries of Edo. Goods flowed into the growing city, supporting thousands of new residents and businesses. Victory at Sekigahara secured Tokugawa Ieyasu's power. Edo was no longer simply a castle town. It was becoming the political future of Japan. Careful planning transformed Edo into a city built for growth. Every new bridge, street, and canal prepared it for an extraordinary future. In 1603, Tokugawa Ieyasu became shogun. Edo was now the seat of military government, marking the beginning of more than 2.5 centuries of peace and unprecedented urban growth. Peace under the Tokugawa shogunate unleashed an extraordinary building boom. Edo expanded almost without pause, drawing thousands of craftsmen, merchants, and warriors. Neighborhoods took shape around social classes. Samurai lived close to the castle, while merchants and artisans filled the busy streets below. In 1635, the Senkin Kotai system required regional lords to spend alternate years in Edo. Their grand processions brought immense wealth, people, and prestige to the city. By the 1640s, Edo had become one of the busiest construction sites in Asia. Every district reflected the confidence of a city growing under lasting peace. By the middle of the 17th century, Edo had grown beyond all expectations. What had once been a fishing village was now one of the largest cities in the world, a transformation unmatched in Japanese history. In 1657, the Great Fire of Meriki devastated Edo. Much of the city was destroyed, and more than 100,000 lives were lost. Yet from the ashes came an even greater city. Reconstruction transformed Edo. Wider streets and open spaces were introduced to reduce the risk of future fires, making the city safer and more organized. Recovery was astonishing. Within a generation, Edo had become larger and more prosperous than before, driven by trade and skilled craftsmanship. Edo was no longer defined only by politics. It had become a center of culture, entertainment, publishing, and everyday urban life, unlike anywhere else in Japan. By 1700, Edo stood among the largest cities on Earth. Built almost entirely of wood, it had become the political, economic, and cultural heart of Tokugawa Japan. By the early 18th century, Edo had become one of the largest cities on Earth. Peace allowed commerce, craftsmanship, and daily life to flourish on an extraordinary scale. Prosperity reached beyond politics. Edo became a city of readers, artists, merchants, and entertainers whose culture shaped generations of Japanese life. Edo's cultural life reached remarkable heights. Kabuki, ukiyo-e prints, and popular literature transformed the city into the creative heart of Japan. Even the greatest cities faced hardship. During the Tenmei famine, food shortages tested Edo's resilience, yet the city endured. By 1800, Edo stood at the height of its power. Behind its peaceful skyline, however, forces beyond Japan's shores were gathering, forces that would soon transform the city forever. At the beginning of the 19th century, Edo remained one of the largest cities on Earth. Behind its orderly streets, however, the world beyond Japan was changing rapidly. In 1853, Commodore Matthew Perry arrived with steam-powered warships. Japan's long isolation was coming to an end, and Edo would never be the same again. Treaties opened Japan to foreign trade. New ideas, technologies, and customs slowly entered Edo, challenging centuries of tradition. The Tokugawa shogunate was nearing its end. Across Edo, uncertainty spread as Japan prepared for the most dramatic political transformation in centuries. In 1868, Edo became Tokyo, the eastern capital. The age of the shoguns had ended. A new Japan was born, and with it began Tokyo's extraordinary journey into the modern world. The Meiji government transformed Tokyo into the capital of a modern nation. Western technology began reshaping every corner of the city. Modern education, industry, and transportation transformed Tokyo into the engine of Japan's modernization. Railways and electricity ushered Tokyo into the industrial age. The skyline was beginning to change forever. Electricity transformed daily life. Streetcars, telephones, and modern businesses made Tokyo one of Asia's fastest-changing cities. By the end of the Meiji era, Tokyo had completed one of the fastest transformations in history. Yet even greater challenges and even greater reinventions lay just ahead. Chapter 16. Entering the Taisho era, Tokyo embraced modern engineering and new ideas. The capital seemed destined for an era of uninterrupted progress. By 1920, Tokyo had become a thriving metropolis of commerce, transportation, and innovation. Few imagined how quickly everything could change. At 11:58 a.m. on September 1, 1923, the Great Kanto earthquake struck. In minutes, one of the world's greatest cities was shattered. Firestorms soon consumed entire districts. More than half of Tokyo had been destroyed. Yet almost immediately, the work of rebuilding began, driven by determination and hope. From disaster came opportunity. Tokyo's reconstruction introduced wider streets, stronger buildings, and a modern urban plan that would define the capital for generations. Tokyo rebuilt with remarkable speed. Stronger buildings and wider streets reflected a new vision for a modern and resilient capital. By the early 1930s, Tokyo stood once again among the great cities of the world, powered by industry, transportation, and modern engineering. As war spread across the Pacific, Tokyo prepared for conflict. Beneath the routines of daily life, the city braced for an uncertain future. On the night of March 9–10, 1945, Tokyo endured the deadliest air raid in history. Firestorms swept across the capital, destroying vast districts and claiming countless lives in a single night. When the war ended, Tokyo was devastated once again, but the city refused to surrender. From these ruins would emerge one of the greatest urban recoveries in human history. Reconstruction began almost immediately. Every rebuilt bridge, railway, and neighborhood reflected Tokyo's determination to rise once again. economic recovery transformed daily life. Factories reopened, businesses expanded, and modern technology became part of ordinary households. In 1958, Tokyo Tower became the symbol of a new Japan. Rising above the rebuilt capital,